next chapter in the Star Wars saga, Revenge of the Jedi. The battle between good and evil rages on. Join the further adventures of Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Lando Calrissian, Chewbacca, C-3PO and R2-D2, and Darth Vader. A journey to alien worlds.
It's a trap!
A rebellion against oppression. An epic of heroes and villains. An adventure as vast as the universe. Revenge of the Jedi. Coming May 25th to a theater in your galaxy.
40 years ago, a very special movie came out. It's a little movie you may have heard of. It's called fucking Star Wars. Yes, it is the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, so to celebrate, I decided to make this video. This video is going to be very different than all my other ones because I'm actually going to be nice for once because Return of the Jedi is a great movie. If you want to see me be mean for an hour and a half, then go watch my last Jedi video. I worked really hard on it. Just like my last Jedi video, there's timecodes in the description for you. Skip around if you want, I don't care. I know this is a long video. But, yeah. Hope you enjoy it. So, the movie opens up with Darth Vader arriving on the Death Star 2, and he talks about the construction of the station with this doormat, whose name I don't even want to attempt to pronounce. So, the credits say Moff, but everyone in the movie calls him Commander, so I don't know what he is.
That is correct, Commander. I hope so, Commander, for your sake.
Fire at will, Commander.
Anyways, Darth Vader is basically saying, listen, bitch, you idiots are taking too long with this station. Like, what are you doing here? The station needs to be operational so we can fucking blow up some terrorist assholes. Come on now. Oh yeah, and also, the Emperor is coming here, so this station better be operational, or else he's gonna kill you and all your colleagues. Wait, what? Bye. Alright, so we get to Jabba's palace, and I think these scenes are underrated. I always hear that these scenes drag on for too long, but that's just not true. I understand that it's 30 minutes long, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't really understand what's so boring about these scenes. You got all of our favorite heroes here, there's a bunch of amazing effects, there's a lot of puppets too, and they all look great. As you all probably know, Jabba the Hutt is a puppet, and you can't even tell when watching the movie because he just looks so real. Also, there were 6 people controlling Jabba. 6! They literally had a dedicated guy to control his nostrils and mouth, and then they had 2 guys with like remote controls controlling his eyes and eyelids. There's so many little details like that that just make Jabba feel like a real living creature.
I don't know, I don't think I'll ever be disappointed in the way he looks. He is what he is, that's the thing. He doesn't pretend to be anything else. He doesn't feel the need to be charming or anything. He's just an unpretentious, very straightforward guy, and I love him.
There's a lot of fun and interesting little details too, like there's this Jawa fanning Jabba with a palm tree leaf, and Jabba's hitting a bong. Also, there's a meat rotisserie behind Jabba, which is such a weird little detail, but it's funny. Like, it does not need to be there at all, but it is. It doesn't serve the story in any way, it's just there. And then there's just this guy on standby right next to it. And like, just look at some of these aliens. I mean, you never see some of these guys outside of this movie. Like this guy. His mouth is all the way down by his stomach. I don't even understand. How do you eat? Like, does the food go like up your throat and then down into your stomach? Like think about how this works. Like, Is it like a vacuum? I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too far into this. I think I'm looking too far into this. I should shut up now. And there's also this yak-looking motherfucker. There's this dog thing. Hey, look, it's Greedo, but not really him because he fucking died. Seriously though, there's so many cool things here. I don't understand how anyone could be bored by this. And there's one last thing I didn't mention here. It's the most important part about this whole sequence. Princess Leia is in a bikini. Alright, moving on. It's so sick when Luke enters the palace. He walks in like a complete badass and casually force chokes the Gamorrean guards. Once Luke enters the room, he starts checking out Leia. I mean, I don't blame him. But, does someone want to tell him that it's his sister?
It's like the ultimate good news, bad news joke. The good news is there's one really attractive woman in the galaxy. There is. Bad news is she's your sister.
So Luke tries to negotiate and attempts to mind trick Jabba, but that doesn't work. So he starts demanding Jabba to release Han. And I really like seeing how far Luke has come in this movie because, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, Luke is a bit of a whiny bitch in A New Hope. But that's okay, because this is what's called character development. Now, I don't blame you if you forgot what that was, because most modern movies and shows don't have that anymore. Like all the Disney Star Wars stuff. You can just tell by the way Luke is acting here that he's a lot more powerful and much wiser. He's so wise, in fact, that he steals a gun and tries to murder Jabba. But then Jabba's like, not so fast, mister, and he presses a button, and then Luke and the Gamorrean guard fall into the Rancor pit. I think we can all agree that the Rancor pit scene is absolutely amazing. The effects still hold up today, aside from a few blue screen issues, but I mean, like, come on, this is from 1983. It's just a product of its time. Don't really hold it against it too much. The reveal of the Rancor is actually pretty scary. The movie alluded to some sort of monster being down there earlier when Jabba sent Ula down to the pit. All you could hear were her terrified screams. So then when Luke falls down and you finally see the Rancor slowly walk out of the shadows, you're like, holy shit, what the fuck is that thing? Even badass Jedi Knight Luke has this, oh my god, I'm screwed face. And I like how the Gamorrean guards are just laughing at their friend, screaming for his life, and then everyone just cheers as he gets eaten alive. And then Luke is like, ah, fuck this shit, man. And this dude just bolts for the door, but then the guard's like, no, get back in there, pussy, you're supposed to die. And then this dude just chucks a skull at the door, killing the Rancor in a pretty brutal way. And then there's this fat guy who starts crying, and I used to find him so funny when I was younger. I was a heartless child. I still am pretty heartless. This did not need to be in the movie at all, but I love how it's here. Stuff like this adds more depth to the movie, and I know it sounds dumb in the context of this, but, you know, it's true. And it just makes the universe feel more alive. Like, even these random throwaway background characters like this fat-ass Rancor keeper have their own little stories. They have their own goals and desires. It's just cool. Okay, anyways, Jabba is pissed, so he sends Luke and the gang to the giant sand vagina to be executed. And this leads to a really fun sequence. Luke's lightsaber reveal is so badass. That must have been so crazy in 1983 because, you know, back then they only had like blue and red lightsabers. So, you know, seeing a green one would kind of be a big deal. Also, all the promotional material was intentionally misleading you. Like, all the trailers and posters show Luke with a blue one. So, yeah. And I cannot talk about the Sarlacc pit scene without mentioning Boba Fett. His death is very controversial and it is extremely cartoony. Just goes to show that George never really cared for this unimportant B-list character, who's about as useful as your average stormtrooper.
Take over.
To be fair to Boba Fett, There's an unhinged Jedi Knight brutally slaughtering everyone like a maniac, so obviously he's gonna be focusing on him and not the blind man and his injured pet dog. Then Leia brutally murders Jabba by choking him to death with a metal chain, and then her psycho brother starts slaughtering everyone else. Then Luke blows up the sail barge, killing countless more people, and then the rebels escape. Okay, now I want to take this time to talk about Luke's plan, because a lot of people think it's a convoluted mess filled with plot holes, when in reality, it isn't. This plan is misunderstood by so many people. It was misunderstood by me as well. See, I always thought this plan was fine, so I never really put much thought into it. But a lot of people criticize it, and after looking into it, I'm now 100% sure that my theory is correct. And it is very disturbing. Luke's plan is a diabolical plot to fucking murder Jabba the Hutt. Let me explain. So in order to fully understand Luke's evil plan, we have to look at the sequence of events first. So Luke sends in Lando to go undercover as a guard so he can feed him intel. Then he sends in C-3PO and R2-D2 with a message to Jabba. Luke gifts the two droids as an offer of peace. Then Leia disguises Bosch, or Boosh, I don't fucking know, man, I'm just gonna call her Leia. So Leia brings in Chewie, claims the bounty on him, and frees Han from Carbonite, and then she gets caught. Then Luke comes in, tries to negotiate, pulls a gun on Jabba, and falls into the Rancor pit. He defeats the Rancor, and then Jabba sends him and all of his friends to be executed, and finally Luke slaughters everyone and escapes. The end. Okay, so now I'm gonna explain why this all makes sense. This is gonna take a while though, so bear with me and pay attention, because if you don't, you're gonna be fucking lost. So first I'm gonna talk about all the Sarlacc stuff. You have to pay attention to Luke here. Look at him. He's happy he's gonna be executed.
You will therefore be taken to the Dune Sea and cast into the pit of Carcoon, the nesting place of the all-powerful Sarlacc.
He nods his head and has a small smile, and then like a psychopath, he says this.
The last mistake you'll ever make.
And look at that sadistic smile he has while he says that. This dude is out for blood, and you cannot say otherwise. So it's quite clear that his plan is to go to the Sarlacc pit and be executed. People are always like, how did he know that they were going to the Sarlacc pit? Well, it's simple. Luke is a native to Tatooine. How would he not know of Jabba the Hutt? People who don't live on Tatooine hear of Jabba. So if Luke has lived there his entire life, it's very likely that he's heard stories. And he most likely heard that Jabba loves his fancy executions. If you closely listened to the clip I played before, you would have noticed that C-3PO said that the Sarlacc is located in the Dune Sea. Now, why is that important? Well, my dear viewer, have a listen to this.
Old Ben lives out beyond the Dune Sea. He's kind of a strange old hermit.
Luke literally knows that the Dune Sea exists. If Luke knows of the Dune Sea, then he damn well knows about Jabba the Hutt, because Jabba has the biggest criminal empire in the galaxy, and his base of operations is located at the Dune Sea. Or, if Luke never heard any stories of Jabba, which is highly unlikely, he could have just done some research on him. Would you really put it past Luke to do that? We all know how devoted he is to saving his friends. He probably did some research on top of having knowledge of Jabba to begin with. I wonder what they do research with. Maybe there's like some space Google or something. With like, what are those things? The hollow pads or whatever? I don't know. So, people always ask why Jabba didn't kill them all on the spot. Well, it's simple. If Jabba likes his fancy executions, then why would he pass up on the opportunity to send them all to the Sarlacc pit? These aren't just ordinary people, and Wookiees. Han Solo owes Jabba a debt. It's the whole reason why he's at Jabba's palace in the first place. And Chewie is Han's sidekick, so obviously Jabba has no love for him either. I know it wasn't specifically stated in any of the movies, but I think it's safe to assume that Chewbacca was with Han when he dropped Jabba's cargo, which, if you didn't know, that's why Jabba's mad at Han. And finally, Luke is a Jedi Knight. Jedi are extremely rare in this time period, and it is so hard to kill one. Wouldn't you think Jabba would want to give this Jedi a memorable death? Wouldn't you think he'd want to give Han and Chewie memorable deaths too? There's no reason for Jabba not to do it. Jabba wouldn't want to show Han mercy and give him a quick and painless death. He wants him to suffer, being slowly digested.
Over 1,000 years.
Sure, Jabba can torture them or toss them into the Rancor pit, but Jabba does that stuff all the time because he can do all that at his palace. And like I said, these aren't just ordinary people. Jabba would want to make their deaths a big spectacle. It provides entertainment for him, and it shows his enemies and allies that you don't fuck with him. Don't wrong him no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're the greatest pilot in the galaxy, or if you're a Jedi Knight, or a 7-foot-tall Wookiee, because you won't come out alive. He needs everyone to be reminded of that so nobody crosses him. He's running a business here. Come on now. Also, you can't say that Jabba is stupid for letting a Jedi Knight live that long. Jabba has no reason to think that Luke will pull out a lightsaber and kill everyone. As far as Jabba knows, Luke doesn't have a lightsaber. Luke literally pulled a gun on him. Why would Luke pull a gun on him if he had a lightsaber with him? So it's fine that he kept him alive. I don't understand why people have that argument. If Luke resists, just shoot him or stab him. You got badasses like Boba Fett there too. I'm sure Jabba wasn't worried in the slightest. And yes, I do actually like Boba Fett and think he's a badass. I just think he's a bit overrated, that's all. And you might be thinking, well, why would Luke create this plan? There's a risk that Jabba wouldn't send him to the Sarlacc pit. Yeah, no shit there's a risk. But let me tell you something. There's a risk in every single plan. You can never be 100% sure if things will go your way. They all knew what they were signing up for. They knew that they could very well die, but that doesn't matter to them. They are determined to save Han. I know this is kind of a cop-out, but I'm still gonna mention it. Luke has the ability to see into the future. We aren't 100% sure how this ability works because, you know, the Force is very mysterious and all that. But in Empire, he does see the future. So maybe that's how he saw his plan come to fruition. Yoda did say that the future is always in motion, so obviously Luke's plan can fail. However, we have to factor in everything else I've said, and every other point I will bring up after this. There's a lot of evidence telling Luke that his plan will succeed. Even if he didn't look into the future, this plan is still solid. Okay, now with all the Sarlacc stuff out of the way, I'm gonna go in order of all the events. C-3PO and R2-D2 were obviously not meant to stay there because, you know, Luke would never give those two away. R2 is obviously just there to sneak in Luke's lightsaber. So that begs the question, why is C-3PO there? 3PO is there because he's a protocol droid. Protocol droids are very valuable and they are extremely useful, especially for people like Jabba. Jabba only speaks one language, which is Huttese. He has thousands of bounty hunters coming in for work all across the galaxy. So obviously not all of them will be able to understand Huttese or be able to speak a language that Jabba can understand. That's why a translator droid is a necessity for him, especially a translator droid who is fluent in over 6 million forms of communication. So with all that being said, Jabba would obviously accept the droids as a gift because he needs them. If it was just R2, then Jabba probably would have told him to go fuck himself. You probably noticed that it seems like 3PO doesn't know the plan. The reason why is because he has a big mouth and it's possible for him to accidentally say something or unintentionally give Jabba hints. Furthermore, C-3PO's surprise reaction helps sell the idea that there's no foul play involved from Luke here. Also, there's an out-of-universe reason too. 3PO's really funny in these scenes, so yeah.
I don't think they're going to let us in, R2. We'd better go.
And did you ever notice how convenient it is that Jabba doesn't have a protocol droid and has a free spot on the sail barge? It's almost like it's too convenient. Luke would have to know that there's free spots because his entire plan relies on R2 being present on the sail barge. So how would he know? That's where Lando comes in. Lando either informs Luke that there was a free spot on the sail barge, or he freed up a spot for R2. As for Jabba not having a protocol droid, remember when this interrogation droid said that Jabba got very angry with their last protocol droid and disintegrated him? Well, what if Lando fucked with the droid so it'd mess up a bunch of times or something and make Jabba angry? You can quite clearly see that Jabba has a short temper.
50,000, no less.
Lando sabotaging the protocol droid and freeing up a spot in the sail barge guarantees that 3PO and R2 will both be present at the sail barge. And I am convinced that this is what happened. I mean, just think about it. It just makes too much sense for it to not have happened. I believe the reason that Leia was the one to free Han was because she was the only one who could do it. How else would they have freed Han without Leia there? And I already know what you're thinking. Well, Lando's disguised as a guard, so why didn't he just do it? Well, the reason why I don't think he should do it is because if he gets caught, then he can't feed Luke any more intel. Luke needs an inside guy for this plan to work, and it could risk the chance of Lando dying, and obviously, none of them want that. Now, before you say, well, actually, Luke wouldn't want Leia to die either, so why won't he send her? Well, and this might sound a little weird, but it makes sense. So, remember what I said about Luke probably hearing stories about Jabba, since, you know, Luke also lives on Tatooine? Would it really be hard to believe that he probably knows that Jabba likes having, slave dancers? Yes, I know. Just bear with me, though. It makes sense, I swear. So, you know, since Leia is, like, a really beautiful woman, Jabba will obviously be interested in her and, you know, take her in or whatever. Actually, I don't think it matters that she's a beautiful woman because Jabba has this horde thing dancing for him, so I think he'll take anything at that point. But, I think you can understand my point here. Leia is basically guaranteed to survive. I mean, come on now. Just look at her. Why would you kill her? So yeah, basically what I'm saying is that she's the only one who wouldn't be killed after freeing Han. Furthermore, having Leia there as a slave makes it way easier to kill Jabba. She's gonna be right next to him the whole time. And also, she has a metal chain. There's so many goons and guards on the sail barge, it would just take too long for Luke to get there and kill Jabba. So if you have Leia do it, it eliminates the problem. So now Luke only has to deal with the guys on the top of the sail barge. And before you say, well, actually, what if Leia isn't strong enough to choke Jabba to death? Luke is putting too much faith in her. Bro, Jabba's fat as shit. There's no way he can survive being choked to death by a metal chain. It's hard enough for him to breathe as it is. Jabba's puppet weighed 2,000 pounds. Yes, that is actually fucking true. They literally said it in a documentary in 1983. It's on the official Star Wars YouTube channel. Look it up. If the puppet weighs 2,000 pounds, then I'm sure Jabba weighs a lot too. There's a way he can survive being choked to death with a metal chain. Anyways, before you ask why nobody stopped Leia from killing Jabba, the reasons are because, 1, she turned off all the lights, and 2, there's so much chaos. Just look around her. Everyone is running around confused as fuck because they can't see anything. Look at it from their perspective. They see all Jabba's cronies getting slaughtered by a deranged lunatic with a glow stick, and then suddenly the lights go out. Obviously they're gonna be freaking out. They don't know that it was Leia. For all they know, it could be another nutcase with a glow stick ready to fucking murder them. It's basically every man for himself at this point. Do you really think any of these douchebags care enough to save Jabba? They don't want to die. He's a crime boss. They can just go work for another one. Let's be realistic here. If you're in a chaotic crowd of people running around, you won't know what the fuck is going on. All you'd want to do is get away from everyone. Okay, so that explains Leia's role in the plan. As for Jabba not killing Chewie on the spot, I believe we can reasonably assume that the bounty specified that Jabba wanted Chewie alive, and you know, he had no time to kill him during the movie. I mean, a lot of stuff was going on. So yeah, there you have it. The Leia and Chewie thing is not a plot hole. Boom, bitches. One last thing about Leia. I think she was intentionally being loud when she was freeing Han. Like, look at this. This fucking idiot is coming from the other side of the door, and she walks straight into the wind chimes. She literally had no reason to walk over there. Leia, how did you not see those? They're right in front of you. Are you blind, bitch? Haha, whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Leia's not stupid, and she's not a klutz either. I think the most logical reason is that this is part of the plan to be captured. So she's making noises on purpose. I mean, it could just be because she's being a fucking idiot, but she's not a fucking idiot, so I'm gonna go with this. Also, when she lowers Han, it makes a really loud thud. And not to mention that she doesn't even bother to catch Han. Hey, asshole. Maybe you should catch the man that you love so he doesn't fucking break his face. So yeah, she lets him fall, making another loud thud. I mean, come on, it's intentional. If she really wanted to be quiet, then she'd catch him. Like, this was so sloppy. She just rushed in there and freed him, making so much noise. This is in the middle of the night, and everyone is sleeping after partying. I'm sure she could have taken her time and got out there without anyone noticing. One last thing. I like how her breathing sounds similar to Darth Vader's. It's a nice attention to detail. Alright, so Luke comes in, kills the guards, and then tries to mind trick Jabba. But that doesn't work. So he threatens Jabba and demands him that he releases his friends. I feel like this is like the 7th time I'm saying this. I've said this so many times. So, yeah, you know, and then Jabba's like, no, fuck that. So then Luke steals a gun and tries to shoot Jabba, and there's a reason why he does this instead of using his lightsaber. This is obviously where he's planning on getting captured. I mean, do you really think Luke is that stupid? He definitely knows that he won't be able to solo the entire palace with some dinky little pistol. He doesn't intend on killing anyone here, and I don't think the Rain Corps was part of his plan. I mean, he genuinely looks horrified. He's got that, oh shit, I'm gonna die face. But there's one last thing that's unanswered. Why is Luke going through this entire diabolical scheme to murder Jabba and his goons when he can just go into Jabba's palace and murder everyone right then and there? Luke is doing this because he's a Jedi. He doesn't want to go against the Jedi code. Luke takes every single opportunity he gets to warn Jabba. He's giving him so many chances to back down and to let him and his friends go.
With your wisdom, I'm sure that we can work out an arrangement which will be mutually beneficial and enable us to avoid any unpleasant confrontation.
You can either profit by this or be destroyed.
It's your choice, but I warn you not to underestimate my power.
You should have bargained, Jabba. That's the last mistake you'll ever make. Jabba, this is your last chance. Free us or die.
Now, Luke knows that Jabba won't ever back down, but he still throws all that stuff out there so he can still technically be following the Jedi code.
A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack.
If Luke goes there and starts slaughtering everyone, he will go against the Jedi way. But if Luke gets captured and starts killing everyone in self-defense, then it's justified. He's still following the code by doing that. Luke needs to kill Jabba and all of his henchmen, because if he doesn't, they will be after Luke and the gang. They got an empire to defeat. They don't need the biggest crime lord in the galaxy after them too. This is a very pivotal moment in their fight against the Empire. Oh yeah, and some people say, oh, why didn't the rebel fleet just bomb Jabba's palace or whatever? Bro, the rebels are trying to fight the Empire. They're not gonna do that. So, for whatever dumb reason, you still might not be convinced about this not being a plot hole. Let me tell you what a plot hole is. So, in order for something to qualify as a plot hole, it needs to have illogical events and contradictions in the story. This plan contradicts nothing from this movie and contradicts nothing from the previous 2 movies as well. Luke having this information makes sense. Nobody is acting out of character here, and there's no illogical events. Everything here is plausible. Is it really a plot hole if you can reasonably assume stuff based on information we already know about these characters? Let's do something fun. Let's compare this to an actual plot hole in the sequel trilogy. Rey mind tricks a stormtrooper without any training at all, or without knowing what a mind trick is. How can you fucking reason with that? There's no possible way for her to know what a mind trick is, let alone know how to use one. And you can't say, oh, well, Rey heard stories about mind tricks just like how Luke heard stories about Jabba the Hutt. Rey thought Luke Skywalker was a myth like an hour prior to this. So with that being said, how would she know what a mind trick is? She doesn't even know who Luke Skywalker is. You know, the legend who defeated the Emperor and Darth Vader. Yeah, kind of a big deal. There's no excuses for this garbage. And then you got the retarded sequel defenders that point to the novelization and say, well, actually, Rey downloaded it from Kylo Ren when he read her mind. What in the fuck does that even mean? She can just take abilities from people? Fuck out of here, Shang Tsung. Your soul is mine. Wait. So if Kylo Ren read her mind, then how did she take it from him? Wouldn't it be him that should be taking stuff from her, not the other way around? Doesn't that make this whole thing even more confusing? I kind of noticed something when I was recording footage from The Force Awakens to edit this. So, Rey actually does look into Kylo Ren's mind, which I completely forgot about because, you know, I like to push away traumatic memories to hide the pain. So how was Rey able to do a reverse mind read on Kylo? Did she overpower him? Are her mind reading abilities stronger than his, even though she doesn't know how to use them? How did she use them anyways? Like I feel like that's kind of an advanced ability, you know, something that would take a lot of training. You never see Luke read anyone's mind. You never see Darth Vader read anyone's mind. He used a mind probe on Leia. I mean, Yoda can't do it either. I mean, if Yoda could read minds, I think the galaxy would have been saved. I think if any Jedi could have read Anakin's mind, they would have been like, oh shit, we gotta do something about that. So, yeah, I don't think that mind reading should be an ability that any Force user can use. It just fucks with stuff. There's so many plot holes in the sequels, and I can just keep going on and on, but I won't for, you know, my sanity. I find it so funny how these idiots always point to the books, novels, and comics to explain plot holes in the sequels. You don't see anyone doing that for Return of the Jedi. If you need to point to a fucking book to explain issues with a movie, then it's not a very good movie now, is it? With Return of the Jedi, I'm pointing to the movie itself and the previous two movies that established certain things about these characters. You're supposed to watch the other two movies before you watch this one, because it's a fucking trilogy. Duh. Like, is it really that much of a problem when the movie doesn't explain every single thing to you? If it explained the plan, it would slow down the movie. The pacing of Return of the Jedi is not the greatest in the first place. It doesn't need to be any worse than it already is. Many people who criticize Luke's plan are sequel lovers. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them are. This is what they try to do. They try to knock down the other movies a few pegs to make the sequels look better. A New Hope is cheesy and boring. Empire Strikes Back wasn't liked when it originally came out. Return of the Jedi has a ton of plot holes and Ewoks. Man, I hate the Ewoks. But I love Porgs. Porgs were a great addition into Star Wars. All I did was reasonably assume stuff based on information and hints given by the movie. Try doing that with the plot holes in the sequels. Seriously, just try it. You'll come to see that you literally can't find a logical explanation within the movies. You may find a reason, but that doesn't mean it's a plausible one. Everything I said about Luke's plan is plausible. It's not really a plot hole if you can find logical reasons to explain it. There's one last thing I want to address. If this was actually Luke's plan, then why didn't they mention it in the movie? They didn't mention it in the movie because they don't need to. Do you see how long it took me to describe this plan? That would fuck up the pacing of the movie so much. probably ruin the pacing of this video, but I have to talk about it, and I guarantee you that if there was a scene explaining this in the movie, you'd have people saying, "Oh my god, this scene is so awful and boring. Why is there so much exposition here? Does George think his fans are too stupid to figure out the plan? This guy sucks." Okay, so yeah, in conclusion, Luke's plan makes perfect sense, and if you don't understand some of this or disagree with me, I'm open to answering some of your questions or debating you in the comments. Apparently some people on YouTube, Quora, and Reddit have a very similar theory to mine, but mine, however, is better because, you know, I'm very smart, and I made sure that I addressed all the plot holes, unlike other people, so I win. So, Luke goes to Dagobah to finish his training and find out if Darth Vader is his dad. I find it so funny how Yoda is just making dinner, and then Luke comes in and Yoda's like, "You know what? I think I want to die now." And then Luke starts asking him a fuck ton of questions, and then Yoda's just like, "Fuck! I just want to die. I should have skipped dinner. God damn it! Go away, you little shit! This was supposed to be my last meal!" So, before Yoda dies, he says this.
"When gone am I, the last of the Jedi will you be?"
Well, that didn't age well. It's almost like there's a certain Togruta overstaying her welcome, Filoni.
I am no Jedi.
She should have died by Darth Vader. It would have been so much better for her story and Vader's story. This is what annoys me though. Like, how come there's so many Jedi alive during the OT? Like, what the fuck was Ahsoka doing? Why didn't she go help? What could she have possibly been doing that's so much more important than saving the entire galaxy? Oh no, I'm sad because my Leku shrunk and my master murdered a room full of preschoolers. Now I will go cry in exile for 5 years. If Cal is still alive, where is he? He better die before A New Hope. There's also rumors that Mace Windu is still alive. I mean, that's just dumb. That would screw up so many things. I bet Filoni will resurrect Plo Koon too. He asked George to do it, and then George told him to go fuck himself. I'm sorry I'm rambling, but this shit is just so ridiculous. Back to Return of the Jedi. So, yeah, Yoda, like, dies and stuff, and it's, like, really sad. And then after that, Luke is depressed or whatever, and then this motherfucker shows up, and Luke is like, "Hey, yo, bitch, why the fuck did you lie to me?" And then Obi-Wan is like, "Well, you see, Luke, technically the dark side of the Force killed Anakin, and Darth Vader was born, so actually, I wasn't lying, and what I told you was true from a certain point of view." A certain point of view? What the fuck? Obi-Wan, did you forget to take your meds again? God damn it. Obi-Wan is just being a complete asshole here, and is like, "Alright, Luke, you gotta go kill your dad." And then Luke is like, "No, what the hell? He's my dad. I can't kill him." Fine then. You aren't a Jedi, pussy. The Emperor has already won. You were our only hope. Now everyone will fucking die, and it's all your fault. I hope you can live with that, Luke. Alright, so you all know what happens here. Luke finds out that Leia is his twin sister. Bet you wish you knew that one sooner, huh, Luke? What would have been a helpful bit of information. Anyways, I love Obi-Wan's foreshadowing here.
Bury your feelings deep down, Luke. They do you credit, but they could be made to serve the Emperor.
So, you have a twin sister. Your feelings have now betrayed her too.
Alright, so they arrive on the forest moon of Endor, and Luke and Leia hop on a speeder and pursue 2 scout troopers. And what can I say, 40 years later, and the speeder bike chase still holds up pretty well, all things considered. There's only like a handful of parts that look pretty bad, but other than that, it's great. It's definitely a lot harder to notice all the issues because of how fast it's going, and I'm sure I missed some, but like, that's the whole point. ILM used motion blur to hide the effects. I'm also using 4K 83v2, which if you didn't know, is an original film print of Return of the Jedi that they used in theaters in 1983, and it's scanned in 4K, hence the name 4K 83. The original version hides the effects way more, like all the film grain does stuff like that. I don't know what it is about film grain, but it kind of like blends everything in together. Like, if you go on Disney Plus and watch it, it looks really, really bad because they removed the grain and enhanced the quality to HD. And since the original trilogy was never intended to be seen like that, a lot of shots look worse. You can kind of see how on the Disney Plus version, the speeders look like they're just separated from everything. I don't know how to explain it. I guess it's kind of like, you know, it looks like if someone just like pasted a PNG of a speeder bike onto the screen. That's probably why movies that are meant to be in HD shouldn't be in HD. Also, why is the forest so bright? It's a fucking forest. There shouldn't be that much sunlight coming through the leaves. That's not how light works. The original version actually looks like they're in a forest, under a bunch of giant trees. But here, I don't even know where they are. Like, it does not look like a forest. I'm sorry I'm ranting. No one probably even fucking cares that it doesn't look like a forest. I'm just being an idiot, but, you know, whatever. I wanted to talk about it. So shut up. Anyways, it's just a really fun sequence to watch. You got motherfuckers crashing into trees and shit, and I love when Luke gets out his lightsaber and then fucking cuts this speeder in half, sending him spiraling out of control. It's just so badass, man. Okay, so I was gonna have a whole segment here dedicated to bashing this section of the movie. It starts when our heroes meet the Ewoks, and then it ends when Luke tells Leia that she's his sister. But then I watched it in the theaters, and I actually didn't have a problem with it at all. It was just a lot more bearable. I was gonna go on a rant about how it drags on for too long, and then it's really boring, but I actually quite enjoyed watching it in the theater, so I started wondering why that was. I mean, of course, everyone knows that the theater experience is just so much different than watching it at home, but I had no idea why these scenes in particular were just so much more enjoyable than they usually were. But then it hit me, so I'm gonna put this into perspective. So think about it. You're in a movie theater with a bunch of other Star Wars fans. You're watching this movie on a giant screen. It has loud surround sound speakers, the walls cancel out any background noises coming from outside of the theater, and all you can hear is the movie and I guess the people around you, but that, whatever, I mean, come on. You're sitting in a comfortable chair, and you can fully immerse yourself in the movie and be completely carefree without a worry in the world. Then think about how you're watching it at home. You're in your house watching the movie on a normal-sized TV with basic-ass speakers. Your chair isn't as comfortable, there's no noise-canceling walls, you have all these other distractions too. Maybe you have pets that can be annoying. Maybe you have other people living with you, and they won't shut the fuck up! Sorry. What if your doorbell rings? Or what if your fucking neighbors are blasting music because they're inconsiderate assholes? Your phone might ring, or someone might send you a message, or you might get a notification or whatever. Or you might hear some other random noises in your house. It could be anything. Your pumps could be running, your fridge could be making noises, your clock could be ticking. You get my point here. There's so many distractions at home, and it's a lot more difficult to immerse yourself in the movie. And once you do manage to immerse yourself into the movie, it's very easy to break out of the immersion, especially for my ADHD ass. So here's my point. These scenes are a lot more enjoyable once you immerse yourself, because if you got all these other things on your mind, it's hard to immerse yourself in slow scenes like these. It's a lot easier to do with action scenes and the scenes with all the powerful character moments, but not with the slower scenes. There's nothing wrong with slow scenes. The movie doesn't need to be fast-paced the whole time. I mean, all these scenes are important to the story. It's how our heroes recruit the Ewoks, and the Ewoks help them win, so yeah, it kinda needs to be here. However, if slow scenes become too long, then it can take you out of the immersion even if you're in the theaters. Like, for example, fucking Canto Bite. You also have to think about when this movie was being made. It was made in 1982 and then released the following year. Back then, it took so long for movies to release to home to video. A New Hope came out in 1977, and the first VHS for that movie came out in 1982. A New Hope released on VHS when they were in the middle of making the final installment in the trilogy, a whole 5 years later. Empire Strikes Back was released in 1980, and the first VHS came out in 1984. And finally, Return of the Jedi came out in 1983, and the first VHS came out in 1986. So it took a whole 3 years. These movies were specifically designed for the theaters. Modern movies are designed for the theaters and viewing at home. Because, you know, movies come out so quick now. It's only like a couple months after they're showing in the theaters. You also have to remember that everyone has shitty attention spans now, including myself. In 1983, the average person's attention span was fine. I mean, George Lucas can't predict the fucking future. Alright, anyways, back to the movie now. So, Luke gets sick of the teddy bears and decides to leave, and then Leia follows him. And then they talk, and this scene's really good until you start thinking about it. The acting is good, the music is great, and the dialogue is fine, but I have a problem with Luke and Leia being siblings. It creates a lot of plot holes, and I don't want plot holes in my Star Wars. I want my Star Wars to be perfect. I'm gonna get more into that when I talk about all the issues of the movie later on in this video, so stay tuned. Or you can just use a time code to skip to it and then come back to this part, but why the fuck would you do that? Just watch the video the right way, dumbass. When I was watching this in the theater, everyone laughed when Luke revealed this to Leia. You already know why. It's because they kissed. Then Luke confronts Vader, and this scene is perfect. Well, I mean, everything to do with Luke and Vader in this movie is perfect. Luke exits out of the AT-AT, and yes, it's called an AT-AT. Not an AT-AT. If you call it an AT-AT, you're a fucking retard. There should be no debate about this. What do you call an AT-ST? Do you call it an AT-ST? No, you call it a fucking AT-ST. So why don't you call an AT-AT an AT-AT? Doesn't make much sense to be calling an AT-AT when you put it like that, now does it? So what does this have to do with Return of the Jedi?
Absolutely nothing.
I just wanted to talk about it, that's all. Alright, so Luke surrenders himself and exits the AT-AT, and he has a talk with Darth Vader, and Luke tells Vader that he knows there's still good in him, and that's why he couldn't kill him on Bespin, and Vader just knows it's true, so he doesn't even say anything, and then he just randomly moves to a different subject, trying to avoid the conversation. He's like, I see you have constructed a new lightsaber. Your skills are complete. And then Luke just looks at him like, bro, what the fuck, Dad? But then Luke steers the conversation back to where it originally was. I mean, James Earl Jones' voice acting here just really sells it. I kind of feel sorry for the guy, even though he's done all these horrible things. Not James Earl Jones. I mean Darth Vader. James Earl Jones is a cool dude. And then once Luke is taken away, Vader just walks away, standing there in silence, just really conflicted. I've always liked how this Ewok just steals a speeder. I mean, the effects haven't aged the greatest, but it's still a fun scene. He's spinning because the scout trooper shot at him, and he's screaming too. There's this really weird noise that the Ewok makes, and it's always made me laugh. I don't know why. Oh yeah, and I love how Han just taps the scout trooper on the shoulder and then runs away, and then the scout trooper's like, hey, get back here! Oh, fuck! And this is where the movie gets really good. So, Luke and Vader enter the throne room, and the Emperor starts taunting Luke, trying to tempt him with the dark side. And then he reveals that the strike team and the fleet are walking into a trap.
It's a trap!
Shut the fuck up, I just said that. Oh, and this shit really gets me riled up. So people say, oh, the Emperor's an idiot for telling the Alliance the location of the shield generator. No, he's not. You could make the argument and say that he should have waited until the Death Star 2 was completed, but you have to remember something. The Emperor has a pretty bad weakness.
Your overconfidence is your weakness.
So if the Emperor is supposed to be this overconfident character, then of course he's gonna act that way when he's making his plan. I find it so funny that this line is really iconic, yet so many people don't even understand what the fuck it means. Luke wasn't talking out of his ass, he actually meant it, you know. Palpatine has so many fucking reasons to be overconfident too. He has the biggest empire in the history of the galaxy, and the only people who are fighting him are a small band of terrorists. Look at the opening crawl. This ultimate weapon will spell certain doom for the small band of rebels struggling to restore freedom to the galaxy. Palpatine has been ruling the galaxy for around 2.5 decades. He is the most powerful Sith Lord to ever exist, and he can foresee the fucking future to an extent. And Luke is growing closer and closer to the dark side. How would he not be overconfident? Luke is wearing all black and is using Force Choke. Oh yeah, and Palpatine has no reason to think that Vader would betray him. Vader is so fucking conflicted that it took him a whole 2 minutes to make up his mind. Palpatine knew that Vader was conflicted, but he thought Luke was gonna kill Vader. And he almost did too, but then Luke told Palpatine to go fuck himself, which pissed off Palpatine so much that he was like, fine bitch, you can die now. You have to look at this plan from the Emperor's perspective. As he would see it, there's no possible way he can lose. The Emperor knew the Alliance has very few soldiers, so if he just outnumbers them with hundreds of stormtroopers, he'll win. Seriously, do people fucking forget what happened in the movie? The entire strike team was captured in like 2 seconds. The only way the rebels could win is if Han and his strike team blew up the shield generator. Since they were captured, the Emperor's plan did actually work, but then the Ewoks come out from literally everywhere and start attacking the stormtroopers, and Han and his strike team were able to break free in the chaos. How the fuck was the Emperor supposed to know that the rebels would recruit murderous teddy bears? Nobody can predict that! The entire rebel fleet would have been destroyed by all the Star Destroyers and the TIE Fighters because Han and his strike team were all captured and obviously couldn't blow up the shield generator. Even if some rebels escaped, a lot of them would die. The rebel fleet was struggling for about 90% of the battle. The odds are heavily in the Emperor's favor. In fact, it's so likely for the Emperor to win that it would be a no-brainer for him to go with this plan. So no, Palpatine is not an idiot. He's still an evil mastermind. Palpatine being overconfident is not a flaw with the movie. It's a flaw with the character. This was intentional. This is Palpatine's first major role in a movie. He was in Empire Strikes Back, but for only like a minute. So, not really much time to develop him. So why is a character trait an issue with the movie? I don't get it. Characters have traits, you know. I shouldn't even be explaining this. It's just common sense, but nobody knows what they're talking about anymore. And also, the argument that the Death Star 2 has a bigger weakness than the first one is completely false. It wasn't supposed to have any weaknesses. The reason why they were able to fly inside of it is because they were in the middle of fucking building it. It is stated in the movie multiple times and in the opening crawl. Granted, the Emperor probably should have waited to complete the Death Star before he leaked the location, but like I said, his plan had every single right to succeed and it almost did. And he's also a very overconfident character, like I keep saying. I know a lot of people don't think it's a good idea that there's another Death Star because the first one failed, but I still think it makes sense. The Death Star was the Emperor's ultimate weapon, and it is supposed to strike fear so nobody fucks with him. And with the new Death Star, there's a lot of improvements. I can see the reasoning behind this. If they create a new Death Star without a glaring weakness like the first one, they will be unstoppable. See, the Emperor always wanted a Death Star, but then Luke took it away from him. So why wouldn't he make a second one with no weaknesses at all? Ask yourself that, why wouldn't he? But the strange thing is that it took 19 years to build the first Death Star, but only 2 years to build the second. But that's not a problem with this movie. The amount of time it took to build the first Death Star was never stated in A New Hope. It wasn't until Revenge of the Sith that we learned that it took 19 years to build the first Death Star. So if Revenge of the Sith created the problem, then don't get mad at Return of the Jedi for it. See, I feel like a lot of people are afraid to criticize Revenge of the Sith. So many people deem it as this flawless masterpiece. Spoiler alert, it's not flawless. Get out of La La Land. Anakin's kind of a fucking idiot in that movie. Revenge of the Sith has actually created multiple plot holes in Return of the Jedi, which I'll get into later. I can already see people in the comments saying, "Oh, you're no better than the stupid sequel defenders. You're just making excuses for Return of the Jedi. It has terrible writing." Well, there's a huge fucking difference. Sequel defenders use backwards-ass logic to defend those gay-ass movies. They pull stuff from stupid books, or they say, "Oh, well, movies are subjective, and therefore they can't be bad." What does that even mean? People literally use that argument because they know they can't explain all the fucking bullshit in the sequels. I like this movie, so that means it must be good. Movies are subjective, and no one movie is better than another. My mom accidentally dropped me down the stairs when I was very young. Whoops. Like, seriously, I don't understand why some people say some of this stuff about Return of the Jedi. Just watch the movie and stop misunderstanding it. Just use your brain and the movie will make sense. You know you actually have to watch it before you criticize it, right? And since everyone on the internet is a fucking retard, they'll parody each other like NPCs. Return of the Jedi is a really bad movie. I'm a film expert. I'm gonna go watch TLJ and Knives Out, and then go suck off Ryan Johnson on Twitter. He's a film expert. I'm sorry about that rant. Let's just move on now. Okay, so I'm gonna have to talk about this final battle in sections. So first, I'll talk about the entire ground battle, then all the stuff in the throne room, and then finally the space battle. The reason why I'm doing this is because the movie keeps cutting back and forth to those three parts, and if I talk about everything in order, it will just make this video feel messy and confusing, and I don't want to do that, so yeah, and like, if I talk about it in sections, it'll just, be a lot easier to understand. Like, talk about all the throne room stuff, you get all that. I don't want to keep bouncing back and forth. It's just pointless. I don't have to keep explaining this. You probably already got it. Alright. I'm just gonna shut up now, and we're gonna move on. It's so cool when Han and his strike team come into the bunker, and the music is popping the fuck off. Fun fact, this Imperial officer is played by lead sound designer Ben Burtt, and he's doing his best attempt to imitate the iconic Wilhelm scream. I thought I'd throw that in there, just because.
Free!
He was actually the lead sound designer for all 6 Star Wars movies and all 3 Indiana Jones movies. Oh yeah, and he was also the sound designer for the fake non-canon Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but we don't talk about that one. So anyways, they get captured because
it's a trap!
And the fleet comes out of hyperspace, and Lando notices that they are being jammed, and that the Death Star's shields are still up, so all the ships turn around and are met by an Imperial fleet with tons of Star Destroyers and squadrons of TIE Fighters because
it's a trap!
So yeah, everyone is captured, and this poor stormtrooper looks so sad. Dude, what happened to you? My wife cheated on me for one of those damn shadow troopers. So, people get mad that the stormtroopers got killed by Ewoks using arrows and sticks and stones. See, it may look ridiculous, but it still does technically make sense. And yes, I am willing to admit that it does look pretty ridiculous, but at least it makes sense. So, let me explain it. I'm gonna debunk the arrow thing first. Only 2 guys die from an arrow shot. The first one is a scout trooper, and he gets hit in the back of the neck by it. It doesn't go through his armor at all. It hits a part where there is no armor. And this is also mere seconds after the Ewoks ambushed them, so he barely had any time to react. Is it that big of a deal if one guy died to an arrow out of like a couple hundred Imperials? Also, in the same shot where the scout trooper dies to an arrow, if you look to his left, you'll see an arrow bounce off of this other scout trooper's shoulder armor. So yeah, that means arrows can't pierce their armor like some people like to claim. And the second guy dies after Chewie and the Ewoks hijack an AT-ST. So this stormtrooper is being shot at by the AT-ST, so he's obviously not gonna notice 2 3-foot-tall teddy bears sneaking up behind him. And guess where the arrow hit him? Right in the neck. If you get hit in the neck with an arrow, you'll probably die. I mean, come on. So yeah, that settles the debate about the arrows. As for the stones, I mean, this one kind of seems like a no-brainer to me, but I hear complaints about it all the time. They are stones. Do you know how much it'll hurt if someone chucks a giant stone at you? And I don't care if they have armor on. You can tell by looking at that armor that it is very light. So I don't really think it'll do much to stop the stones from hurting them. Also, their armor wasn't designed to withstand a bunch of rocks being thrown at them. I mean, sure, it'll probably, soften the blow a little, but it'll still fucking hurt. I mean, like, back in the Dark Ages, or whatever the fuck, they stoned people to death, so it is possible to die to a stone. I mean, I thought that was pretty obvious, but some people, I guess, don't know that? Okay, you're an idiot. Okay, as for the sticks, yeah, obviously that shit ain't killing anyone. But nobody dies by a stick in the movie. They just get piled on and then get beat with sticks. The fuck were they supposed to do? There's like 10 vicious teddy bears on top of them, whacking them with sticks. I mean, these aren't really even regular old sticks. They are clubs. And some of them are spears and axes. This one has like 2 skulls on it or something. They add all these attachments to make them more deadly. I feel like a lot of this is self-explanatory too. People are dumb, man. I mean, yes, these are primitive weapons, but they're still weapons. Primitive or not, weapons still kill people. Duh. There's also a lot of things that the Ewoks try that just completely fail. Like this fucking idiot tries to drop a rock on an AT-ST thinking it'll do something, and then he fucking dies. You deserved it, bitch. And then this group of Ewoks tries to trip an AT-ST, which actually isn't a bad idea. The only problem is, the Ewoks aren't strong enough to pull it down. They also try launching rocks with a catapult at an AT-ST, and, that goes about as well as you'd expect. There's also this genius who starts beating an AT-ST's foot with a club. Dude, what are you trying to accomplish there? Also, the Stormtroopers actually aren't completely useless in this battle. They hit R2 and Leia. I mean, they didn't die, but at least they hit characters with plot armor. In the one Stormtrooper's defense, he completely disabled R2 for the rest of the battle, and he actually accomplished his goal, which was to stop R2 from opening the bunker. They probably wouldn't have opened the bunker if Chewie didn't have the AT-ST. I mean, the AT-ST is like the main reason the Alliance won. They took out the other AT-STs and a bunch of Stormtroopers, and then it got them into the bunker because Han stole the driver's outfit and contacted the guys in the bunker from the AT-ST. And of course, once the rebels got in there, they blew up the shield generator, which then allows the fleet to go into the Death Star to blow it up. Chewie deserves more credit, and these 2 Ewoks do too. Alright, back to what I was saying though. The Empire wasn't entirely useless. Like, a lot of rebels and Ewoks died. Look at all the dead rebels here. The Ewoks went through a lot too. They got blown up, some of them got fucking tossed, they got shot down, probably trampled. I mean, it's pretty brutal. A lot of people like to run with the narrative that the rebels and Ewoks easily destroyed the Empire, making them look embarrassing, which couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, if you just watch the movie, you can see for yourself. I've been saying to watch the movie a lot. You wanna know why? Because most of the issues people have with Return of the Jedi are because they either weren't paying attention enough, or they just completely misunderstood the movie. And it really makes me wonder if some of these people even saw Return of the Jedi, because you have to be really retarded to miss some of these things. Like, what the hell? Okay, here's another defense for the Ewoks. So, the Ewok battle had a lot of inspiration from the Vietnam War.
The Ewok battle was one of the main inspirations for the whole project when I first started Star Wars, and it evolved out of my interest in a project I'd been working on at the time about the Vietnam War. And one of the more fascinating aspects of that project was the human spirit, the human element, being able to withstand an onslaught of high technology, and how the high technology had failed.
If something similar actually happened in real life, is it that hard to believe that it can happen in fiction too? Here's a bit of a history lesson. So, during the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong was able to kill a bunch of high-tech American soldiers by using primitive weapons and, using their surroundings and placing traps, stuff like that. Sure, the Americans killed way more of the Vietnamese people, but still, the US had to pull out all their forces because the American casualties kept increasing, and they saw the war as unwinnable. The fact that the US retreated means that the Viet Cong's tactics were at least effective. The Ewoks used similar tactics, so why is it so much of a problem that they were able to defeat the Empire? The Ewoks winning is not as far-fetched as you think. The fact of the matter is that the stormtroopers were simply outnumbered and at a huge disadvantage. The Ewoks live on Endor. They understand the surroundings. They're small and can easily hide in bushes. The stormtroopers are wearing all white armor, and they are in a forest, so they stick out like a sore thumb. So let me put this into perspective for you. So just pretend you're a stormtrooper on Endor, and you just got ambushed by vicious teddy bears. You're in all white armor in a forest, and then you have these little motherfuckers hiding in trees and popping out of bushes and other plants like that, firing barrages of arrows, throwing rocks and spears at you, and beating your friends to death with clubs and stones. If you run away, you're never gonna be safe because you can be attacked at literally any moment. Like, one can just pop out of the bushes and fucking eat your whole face off or whatever. Just because Ewoks are cute and cuddly doesn't mean they aren't deadly. So, when you go over to your friend's house or a family member's house and you're like, aw, look at the cute little dog, and then it fucking bites your hand and you start bleeding and you're like, oh my god, what the fuck? I thought the dog was gonna be nice to me! And then you're like, get this dog away from me before I kill it! It's the same shit with the Ewoks. They may look cute, but they can still fuck you up. You ever hear the saying, don't judge a book by its cover? Well, yeah, don't do that. Why is it so hard to believe that they can kill people? I don't get it. What can't we understand here? And a lot of people forget that the Ewoks were actually getting destroyed for a good portion of the battle, but then towards the end of the battle, Chewbacca and the two Ewoks hijack an AT-ST, and that's where the tide starts to turn. I feel so bad for this poor guy who gets thrown off the AT-ST head first. That's a broken neck right there. Imagine opening the hatch just to see a giant 7-foot-tall Wookiee, and then he picks you up and throws you. I also like how Chewie and the Ewoks are just laughing right after they murdered an AT-ST. Before I move on, I want to take a minute to talk about the Ewoks in general. See, people always get mad and say, this is where George Lucas started to go completely off the rails and started adding in all this goofy kiddie garbage, and this was foreshadowing the disastrous prequels. Star Wars is supposed to be serious, nah! Yes. Star Wars is supposed to be serious, but it doesn't have to be every single second, because then it wouldn't be as enjoyable. George still knew when to be serious. The Battle of Endor has tons of suspense. The Ewoks are getting slaughtered, the Rebel fleet is getting fucked in the ass, and Luke is on the verge of turning to the dark side. Sure, you see the Ewoks celebrating their little victories and it's really cute and all that stuff, but it doesn't take away from the suspense. Oh no, this teddy bear let out a cheer because he survived a fucking war zone. My movie is ruined. Curse you, Lucas. Seriously though, there's tons of instances in movies, including Star Wars, where characters let out a cheer when they're winning or their life just got saved. So why is it a problem when the Ewoks do it? The only difference is that they're cute when they're doing it. So what? See, people always act like Ewoks and Jar Jar are like the worst thing in the world, but then they always go and say, oh, but I love the sequel trilogy. Sequel trilogy's great. You know, oh God, I love all of these characters. Definitely no annoying characters here. Oh God, man, fucking idiots. People who say they're hypocrites. The sequels are the most goofy fucking movies ever. There's one last thing about the Ewoks I want to mention before I move on. Originally, George wanted Endor to be a Wookiee planet, and everyone gets mad at that and wants it instead of the Ewoks. However, there is a reason as to why he chose Ewoks over Wookiees.
When George Lucas began to work on the Star Wars trilogy over 10 years ago, no one suspected that an endearing little creature, something like a teddy bear, would play such a large role in bringing about the defeat of the Empire. Not even George. He always planned that the fateful battle against the technological might of Vader's forces would take place on and around the green moon of Endor. But he thought the inhabitants of that moon would be Wookiees, like Chewbacca, Chewie to his friends. But Chewie evolved into a sophisticated creature.
What, Chewie?
A co-pilot and a master mechanic. He was no longer the primitive that Lucas wanted to crush the Empire. Chewie was too intelligent. Well, most of the time he was.
Chewie? Great. Always thinking with your stomach.
George had to develop another primitive.
The throne room scenes are Star Wars at its absolute best, in my opinion. Everything about these scenes is perfect. The whole atmosphere of the throne room is just so eerie, the lighting is dark, and according to George Lucas, the window behind Palpatine is supposed to be like a spider web, because he's like a spider luring Luke and Anakin into the web of the dark side, and the deeper into the web you go, the harder it is to break free of it. It sounds a little weird, but I don't know, I thought it was cool. I've never heard a single Star Wars fan say that they have problems with the throne room scenes. If you do have issues with these scenes, then fuck you. You need to get your brain checked, you stupid idiot face. Yeah. You got the Emperor constantly tempting Luke with the dark side. He shows him the fleet getting demolished. From Luke's perspective, it seems like all is lost. The fleet is struggling, and he knows that Leia and Han are walking into a trap. And it's not like he can look out the window and see them, so the two most important people to Luke are in danger, and their fate is completely out of his hands. All this anger and fear builds up in Luke until he snaps and tries to kill the Emperor. This duel is honestly my favorite in the saga. Sure, it isn't the flashiest, and it's not the most grandiose thing ever, but the emotion is still there. This is the final duel. Everything has been building up to it. Oh yeah, and Luke also gains the high ground, which probably gave Darth Vader some really bad fucking PTSD. Luke's a little shithead. Luke hides from Vader, and I was getting so upset before because I thought of something. How did Luke hide from Vader here? It looks like there's nowhere to hide. Look behind Vader. The stairs are completely visible. So Luke couldn't be hiding under them, but then when he yells never, he's right under the stairs. If you just look at the entire area, there's nowhere where Luke can go without Vader instantly seeing him. So it was making me mad because I was like, no, this scene has to be absolutely perfect. So then I started watching these scenes, you know, looking for something, looking for answers, and then I noticed something really interesting. Look at that. I don't know what to call it, but you see the arrow. Yeah, be like fucking Mike Zero. Alright, there's the arrow. You see that? It extends all the way to the back. So that is definitely where Luke hid. I've watched this movie thousands of times, and I've never noticed that. Well, in fairness to me, you actually have to be looking for it to notice it. I looked at the cross-section of Palpatine's throne room, and sure enough, there's something there. Look at the way the balcony fell. He definitely landed in there. See, I feel like Vader kind of knew that Luke was in there, and he was just trying to turn him the dark side, instead of, you know, just fighting him. I mean, come on, he's not blind. I'm sure he saw Luke fall in there. The way Vader draws out Luke here is so fucked up. He starts threatening the people closest to Luke, and of course, Vader knows what it feels like to lose the people he cares about. He knows it better than anyone in the entire galaxy, having lost everything himself. So it makes it even more sinister that he's threatening to put his own son through the same exact pain. He knows this is what'll make Luke snap and turn to the dark side completely.
If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
understand why George made Leia Luke's sister, because it makes this scene more impactful, and it gives Luke more of a reason to snap at Vader. Of course, a decision like that, this late in the trilogy, is bound to have issues, but it does make this scene a lot better. Alright, I'm about to get real fucking nerdy here, so bear with me. I love the symbolism here. Luke is hiding in the shadows, and his face is like split with the light and dark, and it shows you the internal battle he's having with himself. He wants to stay on the light side, but he can't resist the temptation of the dark side, and Vader knows this, so he threatens to turn Leia to the dark side, which pisses off Luke so much that it pushes him into full dark side mode, and now he is completely submerged in the shadows because he has let his anger get the better of him, and he has given himself to the dark side. Like, dude, that is so fucking genius. People give George Lucas a lot of shit for the prequels and special editions, some of it is deserved, but you can't argue with the fact that he is amazing at visual storytelling. Now, I know George isn't the one behind the camera in this movie, but he does tell the people behind the camera how he wants the shots to look. I mean, there's literally videos of him doing that. And there's tons of bits like this with visual storytelling in all 6 Star Wars movies, and George Lucas directed 4 of the 6. So, it's probably not a coincidence that it's like that in this movie, too. Oh yeah, and also, Darth Vader is completely submerged in the shadows here, showing that he is pure evil in this moment. Because, you know, what he's saying here is pretty sinister. Okay, anyways, once Luke snaps, Vader quickly turns over his head and he's like, oh fuck, oh shit! Fucking fuck! What have I done? Ah! Luke is swinging at Vader like a lunatic with pure rage, and all Vader can do is helplessly block his attacks while Luke draws him out to the catwalk thing, and then he pushes Vader down and cuts off his hand. And this is where it gets like really fucking interesting. I love how similar this is to the duel in Empire. The roles are just in reverse here. Vader started swinging at Luke, and all Luke could do was helplessly block. Then he draws Luke out to the catwalk thing, knocks Luke down, and cuts off his hand. I just fucking love this so much. And then Luke looks at his cybernetic hand, and then looks at Vader's missing hand, and then he remembers what Vader did to him on Cloud City, and then he realizes that he's becoming the exact same monster his father is. So he shuts off his lightsaber and tells Palpatine to go fuck himself.
Never. I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is the classic part where the villain threatens someone the hero cares about, and then the hero like rises up and kicks the villain's ass. We see it time and time again, especially in superhero movies, and it's always treated as a heroic moment. But it's different here. This is not heroic. The music isn't triumphant, it's chilling and it's eerie. This is treated as Luke's lowest point he's ever reached, and that's what I love about this. It's just so unique. The part that is treated as heroic is when Luke tosses his lightsaber aside and tells Palpatine off. That is the moment that Luke becomes a Jedi. This is also a perfect example of how you can have the villain lose without making them any less threatening. Some movies fail to do that. Alright, so Palpatine is pissed, so he starts to electrocute Luke, and this scene is nothing short of a masterpiece. It is absolutely perfect. Darth Vader is going through like a complete crisis here, kind of like me every single day. You can only imagine what he's thinking here because he's not saying anything because actions speak louder than words. David Prowse deserves more credit. I mean, he's showing emotion without any facial expressions, which is just nothing short of impressive. The head tilts that Vader does are absolutely bone-chilling, man. You don't see the evil, menacing Dark Lord who struck fear into the eyes of everyone. All you see is a broken man torn between the light and dark. This is hands down my favorite scene in like any film ever. Period. And it always has been too, for like as long as I can remember, to be honest. The music here is so fucking good too. Like, the entire saga was leading up to this moment. This is what these movies are all about. Watching all 6 original films in order is seriously an amazing experience. When you get to this scene, it's so much more impactful. I've seen this scene millions of times, and I somehow still get goosebumps because it's just that good. This is the perfect finale to a trilogy, and it's also the perfect finale to a saga. It ties everything together so nicely. The finale doesn't feel forced or rushed, it feels earned, and it's so satisfying to watch. A lot of people already know this, but there's also a lot of people who don't know this. So, Darth Vader's redemption arc started in Empire Strikes Back. It's when Luke let himself fall to his death. Basically, that tells Darth Vader that his son would rather die than be with him. You can just see how disappointed he looks too. He's probably like, shit, maybe I am wrong. This dude was searching for his son the entire movie so they could rule the galaxy together. And then Vader finally has Luke, and there's no escape. This is his chance to turn Luke to the dark side. But then Luke is like, fuck you, Dad! Bye, bitch! I mean, I kind of feel bad for Vader here. It's like all of his hopes and dreams just fell down a reactor shaft, because they did, literally and figuratively. This is basically why he's conflicted throughout the entirety of Return of the Jedi. Twists like these have been so overdone since then, especially in modern movies with women. You know, the tragic, sympathetic character because she's a woman, because she can't be evil. Alright, this is not what this video's about. But this one is just different though. For starters, it wasn't very common for a villain to have a redemption arc back then. And also, the amount of shit we see Darth Vader do just adds to it. Like, this guy was a fucking terrible person. He's murdered so many people. But he was still redeemed, and even managed to become like a Force ghost or whatever. Does Darth Vader deserve a second chance? No, not at all. I mean, he's committed way too many atrocities. But the fact that Luke was able to see good in this monster means so much. It shows how hopeful and optimistic he is. Like a true Jedi, Luke basically took one of the most evil men in the galaxy and said, fuck you all, there is still good in him. Everyone around him was saying he's too far gone. They've all given up on Vader. Even Vader has given up on himself. But Luke hasn't. That says a lot about his character. See, I feel like if Vader wasn't conflicted, Luke probably wouldn't have tried to save him, because some people are like truly pure evil, like the Emperor. You know damn well that guy has no remorse whatsoever. But even if there's a slim chance that Luke can save someone, he will take the chance. Especially if this person is related to him. That's why it makes zero sense that Luke tried to murder his extremely conflicted nephew in his sleep. Ben Solo was probably more conflicted than Vader, and he was still on the light side and didn't do anything bad yet, and Luke still tried to murder him. Sorry, Ben, your life is already screwed up. You were a mistake. Mommy and Daddy didn't mean to have you. Bye, bitch! Imagine if the Emperor somehow came back after exploding twice, taking away everything from Anakin's sacrifice and this scene as a whole. Wouldn't that be something, huh?
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Actually, I just thought of something, so this scene fucking sucks. Luke should have just spawned lightning out of his lightsaber like Rey Skywalker did. Fuck this movie, it's shit. It has plot holes, and it contradicts the established lore. Oh yeah, and I love how nobody can bring Vader back except his kids. Doesn't matter if you're his brother, his sister, or even his wife. If Ahsoka died in Rebels, that would have meant Vader killed all 3 of them, which enhances the story, but whatever, I guess. This fucking guy can't let go of her. I hate him so fucking much. I think it's so funny how nobody cares that fucking Luke Skywalker is dragging Darth Vader across the floor. They all just want to get the fuck out of there, and you hear shooting in the background too. I've always just like imagined that it's like stormtroopers fighting for escape pods because they know that they're all fucked. And no, it's not from the space battle. That is the sound of a stormtrooper's blaster, not a ship. The explosions in the background are from the space battle, not this shit over here. So, yeah. Anyways, it's so nice how he's smiling when Luke removes his helmet, because this is like the first time he's seeing his son with his own eyes, and it's actually really, really heartbreaking when he dies. It's probably the saddest death in Star Wars. Is it partly because he's my favorite character in all of fiction? Yeah, probably. But even if he wasn't, this scene still would be pretty heartbreaking. It's the perfect send-off to the most legendary villain of all time. Alright, that's all I got for all this shit. Now onto the space battle. Can I just say that the opening scene to this space battle is so badass? You know, where like all the ships are getting ready to go to hyperspace. The music fucking kicks ass. Like, this is so underappreciated. Nobody ever talks about it. Like, literally nobody. I know it's brief, but goddamn, this shit goes hard. Also, I tested it out, and it doesn't get fucking copyright claim. So guess what? I'm gonna play the whole thing. Suck my dick, Disney. Okay, I'm gonna be annoying and do some nitpicking here. This has always bothered me. So these TIE fighters just spawn out of nowhere. Now, I understand why. It's because it's an old-ass movie from 1983. Stuff like this happened in A New Hope, too, during the Trench Run. But what I don't understand is why it wasn't fixed. They fixed it in A New Hope, but not in Return of the Jedi. Let's not fix the actual issues. Let's add this, because this is more important. I mean, I know I'm using the original version, but if you go on, I don't know, Disney Plus, the most recent version, it's still there. When I watched it in the theaters, it still happened, so they never fixed it. I don't really have much to say about the space battle. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it, and the effects are great, aside from the ships spawning out of nowhere, but everything here is self-explanatory. It's a cool space battle. There's not really much to talk about. I said all I wanted, so yeah. Actually, I will say this, though. I like seeing that Lando and Wedge are given, like, kind of big roles in the space battle. We don't always have to focus on the main characters. It's just nice to see what the supporting characters are up to as well. Oh yeah, and of course, Nien Nunb is great, too. Okay, so Lando and Wedge blow up the Death Star, and Luke has a funeral for Darth Vader, and this funeral is like poetry.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
The Ewok celebration is also just like the perfect ending. You got all of our heroes hanging around, having a good time. You know, all the Force ghosts come in and all that good stuff. And yeah, so that's it. The movie's over. Took me like an hour and a half to cover it. Kinda had to rush the end. Sorry. Return of the Jedi may not be a perfect movie, but the ending itself is perfect. Ask yourself this. Do you find yourself satisfied with this ending? Do you feel that it is a worthy conclusion to the trilogy? Do you find yourself asking any unresolved questions the movie didn't answer? Do you think it ties everything together nicely? See, I feel like most people will answer yes, they do feel that way. That is the sign of a perfect ending. It may not be the flashiest conclusion with lens flares and crazy camera angles and flawless special effects. But if you have a bad story, then all that shit becomes meaningless to most people. I mean, the flashy ending is enough for retards to enjoy, though. It's kind of like how a bug is drawn to a light because it's a fucking moron. Ooh, shiny lights and pretty colors. Ooh, stunning visual effects and cool camera angles. Wow, that explosion was so cool. Did you see that? Oh my god! Alright, so what do you feel after watching The Rise of Skywalker? Ask yourselves the same questions that I asked for Return of the Jedi. The only feelings I got from this ending were shock, horror, anger, disgust, and pain. Lots and lots of pain. See, I feel like most people will feel that The Rise of Skywalker is a fucking awful ending. I mean, unless if you're this dopey-ass dork.
I would give this movie a 6 out of 10. I enjoyed almost everything in it. I had a lot of fun watching it. There were some great laughs. I was engaged and excited. I cried during one scene. I pumped my fist quite a bit. Overall, an enjoyable, fun time at the movies.
I mean, Return of the Jedi had the extremely difficult task of concluding the most popular series of all time and making a sequel to the best sequel of all time. I mean, even in 1983, people were hyped out of their minds. Some people waited for days outside of theaters. Yes, you can look it up on YouTube. There's fucking news stories from 1983 saying that some people waited out there for literal days. Like, dude, people still do that, but it's like, in 1983, I don't know, I just did not think people would be doing that then. I don't know why. I guess people are just as nerdy then as they are now. And most people came out of the theater satisfied. Like, just watch all the interviews. All these people seem so happy. That's an accomplishment that should not be overlooked. It's hard to get a vast majority of the audience satisfied. As much as I love The Phantom Menace, if you just look at the audience reactions, you'll see, like, it's split. Like, a lot of people loved it, but then there's a lot of people who also hated it. At least Shaq loved it, though.
What'd you think of it?
I think it was an excellent movie. I think Mr. Lucas did a fabulous job. Special effects were wonderful, and the storyline was wonderful. And I'm gonna probably come back and watch it a couple more times.
With Return of the Jedi, I haven't seen a single person in those fucking videos pissed. So, I mean, yeah. A lot of people will just write me off as a crazy fanboy who's making excuses for plot holes, but I'm not. Like Luke's plan. There's so much evidence in my theory. I mean, how can you not believe it? I haven't found a single argument that goes against it. Also, the Emperor being overconfident should be self-explanatory, but I guess it's not to people. Oh yeah, and I understand the second Death Star may feel repetitive. However, it does make sense in universe. The Emperor would definitely make a second one. It was his ultimate super weapon. The Ewoks winning may look ridiculous to you, but it still does make sense. So yeah. There are, however, a few real issues with this movie that I will get into right now. This is probably gonna get some backlash, but oh well, I don't really care. So, I think it's pretty fucking stupid that Luke and Leia are siblings. It doesn't really make much sense. Now, we're all so used to Luke and Leia being brother and sister because it's been a thing for 40 years. And for a lot of us, including myself, obviously, it's been a thing for our whole lives. And I don't have an issue with the concept of it. I actually quite like the concept of it, other than the fact that they slipped the tongue. Anyways, I know some people have mentioned it, but still, not that many people do. Leia being Luke's sister doesn't fit with the previous movies. Well, yes, that, but I was gonna say this. It's because it makes Darth Vader look really, really stupid. Okay, so in order to understand why, you know, Luke being Leia's sister, wow. Okay, so in order to fully understand why Leia being Luke's sister is a plot hole, we have to go back to when Vader figured out that Luke was his son. I know it sounds weird, but it'll make sense, trust me. Just pay attention because, you know, you're gonna be lost if you don't. In The Empire Strikes Back, it is implied that Vader already knows that Luke is his son. I mean in the original version of the movie, because in the special edition, he acts like an idiot. And for some reason, the Emperor tells him, and then Vader's like, what? How is this possible?
We have a new enemy, Luke Skywalker.
Yes, my master.
He could destroy us.
He's just a boy. Obi-Wan can no longer help him.
The Force is strong with him. The son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi.
I have no doubt this boy is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker.
How is that possible?
Search your feelings, Lord Vader. You will know it to be true.
It's really dumb. In the original version, Vader doesn't even think twice about it, meaning he already knew of this prior to his talk with the Emperor. Also, the title crawl says, the evil Lord Darth Vader, obsessed with finding young Skywalker, dispatched thousands of remote probes into the far reaches of space. Why would Darth Vader be obsessed with finding Luke if he didn't know that he was his son? It's not because Luke blew up the Death Star. Darth Vader was never really a fan of the Death Star, so I seriously doubt that he cares about it being blown up.
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
And it's not like the Emperor told him to search for Luke prior to this movie, because we see the Emperor tell Vader about Luke, meaning that neither one of them discussed this yet. Why would the Emperor say we have a new enemy if these two already talked about Luke? He wouldn't really be a new enemy then, would he? So how was Darth Vader able to figure out that Luke was his son? Well, it's kind of obvious. For starters, his last name is Skywalker, and also, Vader could sense that the Force is strong with him, so he put two and two together. Also, Obi-Wan being with Luke on the Death Star confirms it for Vader. His old master is with a kid named Skywalker who's strong in the Force. Vader is not a retard, so obviously he knows that it's impossible for it to be a fucking coincidence. That's why that special edition line change is so fucking stupid. I really don't understand why George had to change the line. Like, there was absolutely no reason for it. Why didn't he just have Ian say the lines word for word? Tamora Morrison said Boba Fett's lines word for word when his voice was dubbed in the same fucking edit of the film. They literally both recorded those in 2004. So, like, it's not like, you know, one of them recorded it a lot earlier, and then, you know, the other one recorded it later. No, they both recorded them in the same year. So why did he change Palpatine's lines? It's so stupid. You might be wondering why I'm talking about Darth Vader figuring out that Luke is his son, because, you know, this has nothing to do with Return of the Jedi. Well, actually, that's not true, and it does. So let me explain. Okay, so Vader should be able to sense that Leia has the Force. He sensed that Luke had the Force, this dude interrogated her, and he couldn't find out she had the Force? What? That's so dumb! It literally doesn't make any sense. If Darth Vader did sense the Force in Leia, then he would have done something about it. Basically, all he talks about in that movie is the Force. You don't think he'd tell Tarkin that he sensed the Force in her? Maybe Vader would be like, hey, maybe that's why Kenobi is here on the Death Star. You don't think Vader would say that to Tarkin? I mean, he was literally trying to convince Tarkin that Obi-Wan was alive and on the Death Star. Okay, so let's say that Vader did sense that Leia is strong in the Force during the interrogation, because how would he not sense it? And then for whatever retarded reason, he just didn't do anything about it. Because, you know, we're just not gonna use logic. Now skip ahead to when Vader figures out that Luke is his son. So this is probably very shortly after the events of A New Hope. And keep in mind that A New Hope and Return of the Jedi take place 4 years apart. Okay, so there's two really young people that look around the same age and who are both strong in the Force. I mean, that's a pretty odd coincidence considering that the Jedi are extinct, and I don't care what new piece of Star Wars media says that there's a lot of Jedi around in this time period, because it is made quite clear in A New Hope that the Jedi are extinct.
Now the Jedi are all but extinct.
The Jedi are extinct. Their fire has gone out of the universe. You, my friend, are all that's left of their religion.
Vader also knows that Luke and Leia are both part of the Rebel Alliance. Also, Vader knows that Luke and Obi-Wan were both at the Death Star to rescue Leia. As far as Vader knows, Luke and Obi-Wan went to the Death Star with the intent of rescuing Leia. Okay, so let's go back to A New Hope now. So, Vader just killed Obi-Wan, and then he hears someone yell no. And soon after, Vader will learn that this is his son. So Vader knows that Luke was there in the Death Star. I mean, he literally looks right at him, so it's impossible for him to not know. So again, this is from Vader's perspective. His son and his former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, went to the Death Star to save this princess who's strong in the Force and also happens to be the same age as Luke. Out of all the people from the Rebel Alliance who could have gone to save her, it was those two. Okay, so let's recap this from Vader's perspective. Two young people around the same age, both strong in the Force. They are both part of the Rebel Alliance and have both been seen with Vader's former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and one of their last names is Skywalker. The answer is staring him in the face. He should know that Leia is his daughter. So with that being said, why was Vader surprised when he found out that Leia was Luke's twin sister in Return of the Jedi? Vader literally had a full 4 years to figure this out, and during those 4 years, he was obsessed with finding his son. So you're telling me that this dude wasn't able to figure out anything about Leia being his daughter? That's a bunch of bullshit. I mean, if he just took like 2 seconds to think, he could figure it out. Luke and Leia's stories are tied together, so there's no way for him to not figure it out. See what I mean? Like, these two being siblings just creates a bunch of issues. But I guess I'm willing to look past it, because it does serve the overall story, or whatever the fuck that means. Especially during the end of the movie, and I really like that scene. But it's still an issue, a very annoying one at that. So yeah, you should not look past it. So I had no idea where to put this in the video, and I wanted to talk about it. So there's a plot hole in this scene that Revenge of the Sith created. You know, the perfect film Revenge of the Sith that everyone fucking sucks off to no end? Yeah, that one.
Do you remember your mother? Your real mother?
Just a little bit. She died when I was very young.
What do you remember?
Just images, really. Feelings.
Tell me.
She was very beautiful, kind, but sad.
There is no way anyone can find a fucking reason to explain that. And don't you dare pull it from a fucking book. I hate when people do that. Well, you see, this book explains it perfectly. Why does the book have to explain it? Why can't the movie explain it? It's not like the book was written by George Lucas. Even if it was, I still wouldn't allow that explanation. The movie should have explained it. Anyways, okay, so they should have just had Padme go to Alderaan and die like 2 years later or something. I don't know. There's just no way for Leia to remember seeing Padme at birth. And I don't care if it's because of the Force. Why doesn't Luke remember Padme?
I have no memory of my mother. I never knew her.
Luke was literally born before Leia, so if anything, he should be the one who remembers Padme, not Leia. And I don't want to hear, it's the mother and daughter connection. Ugh, farce. Shut up. A lot of people don't like Han in this movie because he isn't the same as he was in the previous two films. And you know, I kind of agree with that to a certain extent. However, Han still does have some classic moments where he's his good old self.
I used to live here, you know.
You're gonna die here, you know. Convenient.
Quietly. There might be more of them out there. Hey, it's me.
I don't think he's bad in this movie. I mean, it's fucking Harrison Ford. Of course it can't be bad, but he definitely doesn't have the same amount of charm as he did in the previous two films. But it's still not that much of an issue in my opinion. I do completely understand if you don't like him in Act 2 though. During some parts of Act 2, he is really phoning in his performance. It's not the worst thing in the world, but like, Harrison Ford can do so much better. We've seen him do so much better. I also wish that Han had more things to do. I love the finale to death, but maybe they could have extended the runtime a couple more minutes and added more Han and Leia scenes in the final battle. Then that would have been nice, I guess. But once again, it's not the end of the world, because this is Luke and Vader's story mainly. Han and Leia's arcs were basically completed throughout the previous two films. Also, I just want to say that contrary to popular belief, Harrison Ford actually does not hate Star Wars. Like, I don't know who started that shit. It's just not true. And he doesn't necessarily hate Han Solo either. Ford thinks Han isn't all that interesting of a character, which I mean, I don't understand in the slightest, but he's free to feel that way. And I don't blame him for not wanting to play Han. If I was an actor playing a character I had no interest in, then I wouldn't be happy either. And as for him supposedly hating Star Wars, that's just not true at all.
It was a lot of fun. How much fun? About this much.
I genuinely believe that he liked the character originally, and then he just got burnt out by the time Return of the Jedi rolled around, and then, you know, Star Wars just got bigger and bigger, and he just got so sick of hearing it, so I guess maybe now he doesn't like Star Wars, but there was a point where he did. People like to run with the narrative and say, oh, he never liked it, you know, not once, he just was only in it for the money, never cared about Han Solo, even in 1977, didn't care. It's just not true. Also, if he didn't like the character, then why would he improv lines? Why would he keep showing up? Okay, well, maybe that one was for the money. But why would he improv lines, alright? That was a good one. That was a good point. You know, you'd think if he was only in it for the money, he'd just be like, alright, let's get this shit over with. You know, he'd just say the lines he was told. No, he put his own personality into the character.
I love you.
I know.
So the last issue is that the movie just kind of feels disjointed. As much as I love the first act, it feels very disconnected from the rest of the film. Once Luke talks to Yoda, it feels like a completely different movie has started. And it's just really weird. It just doesn't flow together as well as the previous two films. You know, I never felt like that when watching Empire or Star Wars. As slow as the droid scenes are in Star Wars, it still feels like it's part of the same movie. I wonder if the reason that Act 1 feels like a separate movie from Acts 2 and 3 in Return of the Jedi is because the Yoda scene was like a last-minute addition, kind of just shoved in there. For those of you who don't know, it was added into the movie to confirm that Darth Vader was Luke's dad, and no, it's not because George Lucas thinks his fans are dumb, like so many people like to say. It's because back then, a lot of people thought that Darth Vader was lying to Luke, and I mean, they had every single reason to believe that. I mean, why should they believe him? Twists like that were unheard of back then. Why would you take the villain's word for it? He's supposed to be the bad guy. You're not supposed to trust him. Would you really put it past this guy to lie? I mean, he's a fucking horrible person. Come on. But if you hear it coming from two wise Jedi Masters, it's a lot more believable. These are characters you're supposed to trust. They have this wisdom that no other character possesses. So of course you'd take their word. But I mean, other than Act 1 feeling like a completely different movie, you know, the rest is fine, because Acts 2 and 3 feel like they're part of the same movie, so yeah. Okay, yeah, that's all the issues with Return of the Jedi. Doesn't take away from the movie that much, but they still shouldn't be overlooked either. I do forgive this movie for all of its problems because, well, Slave Leia is here. I mean, like, come on, you cannot sit there and tell me that she's not fine as fuck. This outfit really brings out her eyes. Carrie Fisher has nice eyes, and this outfit really shows it. Okay, there's one last thing I want to mention before I move on. So I noticed something, like, really interesting, and I've never heard anyone talk about this. So during the scene where Luke kicks Vader's ass, I noticed something move on the right side of the screen. So I rewinded it, and it looks like that board thing that the directors use right before they say action, whatever those things are called. I think they're called, like, clapper boards or something like that, I don't know. So then I put on the full frame version of the film, and for those of you who don't know, the full frame version is just a theatrical version, uncropped, so you basically see the entire 35mm film. Obviously you can't see that in any of the official releases of the film. Anyways, I checked out the full frame version, and look at that, it's someone's hand. Look at how quickly they move away, too. They're like, aw shit, I'm in the fucking frame. I hope no one notices. Then I checked out my 2011 Blu-ray, and then I checked out the version on Disney+. You can see the board in the Blu-ray version, but not in the Disney Plus version, so they must have removed it or something, I guess. Okay, that's all. Just a cool thing I noticed that I wanted to point out. Remember how in the beginning of the video I said that I'm gonna be nice for once? I lied. The special edition changes in this movie are absolutely awful. Like, every single one of them is. Let's start with Jedi Rocks. The CGI here looks like shit, and I don't care if it's from 1997. It looks horrible, and the song they sing is so stupid. It's so bad that Boba said bye and then fucking left. I don't blame him. Also, the way Sice Noodle's stomach flops up when she says uh-oh is so fucking disgusting. George, why did you include this? Like, what part of you said, yeah, I'm gonna put this in fucking Star Wars? A lot of this shit just makes me so uncomfortable. Like, why is it so over the top? And what's with the close-up mouth shots? I don't need to see this fucking guy's drool all over the screen. Why does her CGI stomach need to flop? Why do they walk so weird? Why does this jackass have cartoonishly big feet? Wear some shoes, bitch! Why are you barefoot in a fucking desert? Aren't your feet gonna burn? I don't want to move on from this fucking guy yet, because he pisses me off so fucking much. His whole presence in this movie makes me want to scream. Everything this guy does is so annoying. Look at this fucking idiot. Bro, what are you so shocked about? Doesn't this shit go on here all the time? Don't you always perform here? Jabba literally has a slave wearing a fucking fishnet dancing for him, and you're shocked that he killed her? He obviously doesn't give a shit about women. This whole scene is stressing me out because it's so bad. It looks like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? But wait, there's more. Look guys, the Sarlacc pit has a CGI beak now. Isn't that cool? This is some real impressive CGI work. Wow, I didn't know that the Sarlacc had the ability to phase through the ground. Oh my gosh guys, the Ewoks now blink. Whoop-de-fucking-do. This enhances the movie so much.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
Darth Vader yells no now. You see, this was part of George Lucas's original vision. He just didn't have the technology to add it in 1983. Okay, in all seriousness, Darth Vader's no is like the worst special edition change, period. It fucking sucks, man, and it ruins the scene. It does not need to be here. You ever hear the saying, actions speak louder than words? I genuinely think that George Lucas was trolling when he put the no in there. It was definitely targeted towards the prequel haters, mainly. I mean, shit, man, they probably deserved it. But now the whole fandom has to suffer! Nobody's actually retarded enough to think that the no was a good change. George Lucas has made some really, really dumb decisions, but I don't think that he's stupid enough to add in that change. But then again, he did add this into the 1997 special edition.
Come with me. It is the only way.
It was so bad that he removed it in 2004 in the next special edition. See, I really don't understand what was going through this guy's head when he made some of those changes. There's a lot of just pointless fucking changes that fix nothing. Literally nothing. Where? There's some changes that, like, no one would even notice, and this guy just fucking changes it for no reason. Wow, George, that rock in front of R2-D2 really enhances the movie. How the fuck did he even get in there? He obviously can't fit through that tiny space, and how did he get out? Wait, so the rock's gone now? Where'd it go? Who moved it? What? Was the rock a fucking hologram? I certainly didn't hear anyone move it. I mean, R2 has arms, but look at those, they're twigs! He can't move a rock! Does R2 have the Force? Maybe Obi-Wan moved it. Hello there, come here my friend, let me just move this rock out of your face. I don't even know how you got in there. There you go. Come on. Okay, anyways, the no is stupid out of universe, and it's stupid in universe too. So, why would Darth Vader yell that? Why is he thinking out loud? Is Darth Vader retarded? Why do the special editions keep making Darth Vader look like a fucking idiot? Like they did in Empire, you know, where he didn't know that Luke was his son despite the obvious facts staring him in the face, and now they're doing it here with him yelling his fucking thoughts out loud. Maybe it's to fit in line with Anakin being a stupid idiot head in Revenge of the Sith. Wow, you know of a Sith legend where this guy knows how to save people he cares about from dying? I just had a dream about my wife dying during childbirth last night. That's not suspicious at all.
Good as a point of view, Anakin. The Sith and the Jedi are similar in almost every way.
So, how is this not a red flag to this fucking moron? The Chancellor literally says that to Anakin, and then right after he tells him the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Hey, dumbass, did it ever occur to you how fucking convenient it is that you just had a dream about your wife dying during childbirth, like last night, and now this guy who should know nothing about the Sith is telling you that Sith Lords have the ability to keep the ones they care about from dying? That's not suspicious at all to you? And the Jedi Council literally told you to spy on him because they were suspicious of this guy.
The dark side of the Force surrounds the Chancellor.
I have the power to save the one you love.
A few moments later.
To cheat death is a power only one has achieved. But if we work together, I know we can discover the secret.
Oh, so you don't know how to do it, but you just told me that you knew how to do it. So you lied to me. You made me kill Samuel L. Jackson. Why did you do that? Stop asking questions, Lord Vader. But I go kill a room full of children. Oh, okay, I'll go do that. So, did Palpatine not notice Vader screaming? Like, Vader literally yelled it. Palpatine definitely had enough time to turn around. You could see the emotion through Vader's mask. There was no need for this change. And he sounds so whiny when he yells it too. It's just so annoying. And I don't understand how anyone can sit there and say that this is a good change. Better than the original. Like, there's a lot of people who just get so mad when someone criticizes the special editions. Like, come on. There's just so many retarded changes in all the movies. I mean, I don't understand what the fuck this guy was thinking sometimes.
Look, Jabba, even I get bored sometimes. You think I had a choice?
How long have you had these droids?
Alright, let me talk about the colors for a minute. The colors in the special editions are so disgusting. Look at this. Star Wars looked like this from 2004 all the way to like 2016. If you have any of the older DVDs or Blu-rays, you can look for yourself. So apparently George Lucas wanted to make the original trilogy look more like the prequels, you know, with more modern, saturated colors. Why? This is why you probably shouldn't fucking recolor movies from the late 70s and early 80s to make them look like movies from the early 2000s. That's just not how things work, and they look stupid. So yeah, don't do that. I mean, what? Whatever. I don't know why you can't just keep the colors the same. There was nothing really wrong with the colors. He's like removing all the personality that those movies had. I don't know, man. Before I move on, I just want to make myself clear, because I know everyone nowadays takes everything out of context and gets mad at people for no reason. I don't hate George Lucas. Quite the opposite, actually. I love George Lucas. He is my favorite filmmaker of all time, and I like watching all the interviews of him, you know, talking about Star Wars and all that stuff. He's just a very interesting guy to listen to. But that doesn't mean I can't disagree with him. People disagree with each other all the time. every single one of you watching this video has disagreed with someone very close to you on multiple occasions. Doesn't mean you hate them. This is no different here. The special editions suck ass, and I disagree with all the changes George made, but I still like George Lucas, and I got a lot of respect for the guy. He's a very talented filmmaker and writer, and he created my 2 favorite film franchises of all time that were a huge part of my childhood. So yeah. Also, the shit with the special editions was a joke, if you couldn't tell. Yes, I do actually hate the special editions, but, I mean, I wouldn't get that mad over them. Also, I'd like to make myself clear on why I'm bashing Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith gets way too much praise, and I constantly see everyone calling it perfect when it just isn't. And I see a lot of unjustified hate towards Return of the Jedi, and it's really annoying because Return of the Jedi doesn't deserve the hate it gets, and Revenge of the Sith doesn't deserve the absurd amount of praise it gets either. And yes, I do love Revenge of the Sith, but it is far from perfect. It has way more issues than Return of the Jedi does. Return of the Jedi is objectively a better film than Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith can be your favorite Star Wars film, it can be your favorite film of all time, but that doesn't mean it is better than Return of the Jedi. That doesn't mean it's better than any of the films in the original trilogy for that matter. It just means you like it more than the original trilogy. Objectively speaking, Revenge of the Sith is like a 7 out of 10.
Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
I mean, this may be a hard pill for you to swallow, but it's true. There's terrible dialogue, shit acting, rushed plot, couple plot holes, you know. Okay, so like, I'm not really that good with conclusions, so I'll just say this. Return of the Jedi is a very special movie to me. It was my favorite as a kid growing up. I mean, it may not be my favorite anymore, but it will always hold a very special place in my heart. And I'm not trying to get too emotional or personal here, but like, this movie has helped me through a lot of hard times in my life. I mean, sometimes we just need to watch some teddy bears brutally murder stormtroopers, or some psychopath beat the shit out of his crippled war veteran father. I mean, you know, it helps heal the heart. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Okay, sorry this video took so long to make. I mean, I seriously did not think it was gonna be as long as it was. I mean, I underestimated it. I kind of started it too late, and once I figured out that it was taking longer than I expected, it was way too late. So, yeah, my bad. I really hope it was worth the wait, though. But, yeah, that's all I got. So, like, bye and shit.
You love him, don't you?
Yes.
All right. I understand. Fine. When he comes back, I won't get in the way.
No, it's not like that at all. He's my brother.
Headquarters personnel report to command center. Headquarters personnel report to command center.